Good day, everyone. Today we shall be looking at some WAEC repeated questions for WAEC NECO GC for those who are preparing for WAEC. So we're going to take some topics, just explain a little bit, then we'll dive into some of the questions, likely questions that you may encounter during the course of your examination. So let's start with the first one. It said introducing biology. This is an introductory note on biology. What is biology? By the way, biology can simply be defined as the study of living things with relationship with the environment. That is, how do living things relate to the environment? You study these living things and how do they affect, or how the environment affect them in the environment. So we have living things composed of cells, and non-living things are not made up of cells. Living things have some characteristics that makes them to survive, that makes them living. That's the name living, because they have cells in them. So some of these characteristics, they have the ability to move from one point to the other. That's mobility. For a living thing, you have to move from one point, maybe in search of food, or probably you are running away from danger. So that characteristic of movement is possessed by everything called living. But non-living thing, on the other hand, they don't have this ability to move from one place to the other. Now, other characteristics like irritability, that is, for anything that has cell, you must be able to be sensitive to your environment. The skin, for instance, is made up of sensory cells, so that for a human being, so that when there is any environmental change, probably weather condition, you react. There'll be a reaction in the body of every living thing that tells you that it's a living thing. Non-living thing, on the other hand, don't have that characteristics. We have other characteristics of living things like reproduction. Reproduction in the sense that living things can be able to produce young ones that looks very much like them, so that there can be continuity of life. You see an organism, probably a goat giving birth to another goat resembling them, so that when the older one, the mother dies, the child can, or the offspring can continue life. That is reproduction. Then we have other characteristics, so many of them, excretion, ability to remove waste material, and so on and so forth. So let's proceed. We have procedures for biological work. There are certain procedures when we are carrying out biological experiment or research in the laboratory. There are steps we follow when carry out examination of organism in the environment. One of the first procedure is you have to do what called observation. Observe. The first step in carrying out any biological procedure is you have to observe the organism in the environment. How does it look like? What are their pattern of action or activities? What do they look like? Number two is question. Having observed particular pattern of relationship in the environment, you therefore ask questions. There will be questions in you question some of this observation to know, and this one will lead you to what we call hypothesis. Hypothesis. Hypothesis means there's a need for you to formulate some, based on the question you are asking, you formulate some procedures that will answer some of these questions. You put them in a format that will guide against this question, that will answer this question. Then after the hypothesis, you now formulate you carry out what's called experiment. To experiment, you carry out the research to demonstrate the answers to this question. to verify, to validate the answers to this question. So having done that experiment, you gather some material, collect some samples, and then carry out some investigation based on.
Get the cheapest science materials from allschoollabs.com.
The answered question. Then this leads you to the next one called analysis. You analyze this experiment to actually find out how they are related, how the work fit in their experiment. Then finally, you do what you call conclusion. Your conclusion based on what you observe, what you analyze. You derive a law or you conclude that so and so is able to do based on what you get in the analysis. When you analyze results, you investigate this result to question some of these answers. If they are genuine, then you now conclude. So basically, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 procedures to follow when you are carrying out some experimental procedures. Let's move on. Then some of these procedures, for you to analyze, you need some of these materials such as microscope for you to observe, to analyze some microscopic experiment. You need some of the measuring cylinder so as to measure the solution, the concentration, to prepare solution. There are a number of apparatus that is needed in the laboratory for investigation. Now, importance of biology. Why biology? Biology is so important because it's involved life. Without biology, we can't study medicine. We can't be able to know how our health improves. Through the study of biology, we have courses like medicine, radiology, animal husbandry, plant and animal science, and so on, agriculture, food production. So with the study of biology, we have a number of important applications to life. For instance, environmental pollution too. Through the study of biology, we can study some organisms that constitute air pollution, water pollution, and etc. So importance of biology can never be overemphasized because it enables us to study the factors that affect life, at the same time non-living thing in the environment. We can have some few questions based on this subtopic. So let's take 5 questions on this. What is biology? What is biology? The study of. That is, what is biology all about? A, biology is the study of non-living thing. Is that correct? So, non-living, it's just the study of non-living thing. B, living organism. The study of living organism. Study of chemicals. The study of rock. Biology is the study of one thing here, non-living thing. Living thing. Correct answer is B, because biology, the study of life, living thing. So life is emphasized there, so living thing. B. Number 2. What is the first step in the scientific method used in biology? The first step in the procedure is A, hypothesis, B, experimentation, C, observation, and D, conclusion. The first step is observation. Before you can carry out some procedure, you have to first of all observe. You see what the organism or what the environment looks like, how they relate to one another. So the first thing is you observe. It is when you observe that will now lead you to begin to question some of this observation. Then you lead you to hypothesis, from hypothesis to experimentation, and then finally you conclude. Number 3. Which of the following is an importance of biology? Why the study of biology? To understand non-living things, improving human health, studying rock, developing new technologies only. which of them is an important aspect? Of course, all of them are very important, but which of them? Number B, it improves human health. The study of biology helps us to improve human health. B. The next question says, what is the purpose of experimentation in biology? Why do you have to carry out experiment in biology? To prove a theory, to test a hypothesis, to collect data on it, to draw conclusion. The reason why you carry out an experiment is to test hypothesis. You have a question in your heart. So, but by the time you investigate this procedure with experiment, if it goes along with your hypothesis, if you answer your question based on the experimental result you got. So to test a hypothesis is the more reason why we carry out experimentation in the laboratory. Number 5. Which field applies biology to improve crop yield and disease resistance? These are branches of biology. And which of these branches talks about crop yield, that is the raising of plants and then fighting disease? A, medicine. B, agriculture. C, conservation. And D, biotechnology. The correct answer is agriculture, because agriculture produces crop yield and at the same time fight disease that affect it. Yes, biology has a branch in medicine, but it does not improve plant production. Yes, conservation. Biology helps us to understand our environment and how we can maintain our environment, such as water, bodies, pollution and things like that. But it doesn't really talk about crop. Now, biotechnology, that's genetic engineering, where we can get some strain to develop to improve life, So this is not, the correct answer is B, agriculture. So let's move into the next topic. It says cell biology, that is, what is cell? How does it relate with living things? How important is cell to living organism? Like we said earlier, that cell is the basic unit of life. That is the fundamental thing that is needed before you can call something a living thing. And cells can be categorized into different types. We have the plant cell and the animal cell. The plant cell has the characteristics of having a cell membrane, is oval in shape, and is quite larger compared to plant cell, which is regular in shape, surrounded by cell wall, and with some organisms which are quite different from one another. The basic difference in animal and plant cell is plant cell has chlorophyll. It's made up of chlorophyll, and chlorophyll gives the green characteristics to plant, enable plants to manufacture their own food through the process of photosynthesis, which is lacking in an animal cell. Animal cells don't have chlorophyll, and it has a number of differences that make them. So, movement of substances in and out of the cell, that is, the ability of a cell to relate well in their environment. That is, when you place a cell in certain environment, how do they react to the environment? We therefore talk about cell and the environment. Now, there are different movements of particles or material in and out of the cell. We have the first one called osmosis. Osmosis is the movement of matter such as water from a region of higher concentration of water to a region of lower concentration, which involve a permeable membrane. Water moves from a region of higher concentration of water to a region of lower concentration of water. For instance, if we have a living cell, probably a yam. You made a hole inside a yam, which is a living thing. Dig a yam and made a hole inside. Then you place a cell inside a salt solution. This is salt. Put some salt solution here. Then this is place it inside water. Now there will be a movement. There are two medium actually. This is salt solution, salt, and this is water. There will be a movement of water from this region because this is less concentrated. Meaning we have more of water here. But this is highly concentrated, high concentration. There will be a movement of water here through this permeable membrane. This is a permeable membrane, which is your yam. Permeable membrane is a membrane. Now, the movement of water from a region of higher concentration of water to a region of lower concentration, or from a region of less concentration to a region of higher concentration of molecule is what we call osmosis. And it has to pass
Run quick tests and analysis. Visit analysis.africa.
through a permeable membrane, which is a living cell. Then we have other movement too. We have diffusion. Molecules, usually gases, move from one region to the other. Gases especially move from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. You can see if a perfume is open in one end of the laboratory, you feel the scent after a while. This is where the can was open at the door. Probably after some time, you perceive the odor or the scent at the other extreme of it. So this movement is a result of diffusion. You don't need a permeable membrane, So the movement of material, molecules, usually gases, from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration is called diffusion. We have other movements of molecules such as hemolysis, and then plasmolysis. Plasmolysis simply means the movement of material. Usually we have two types of media. We have two types of media. We have hypotonic, tonic, and hypertonic. Hypotonic media are media that has low concentration of solutes, meaning they are dilute, While hypertonic, they are highly concentrated. So in the case of the example given above here, water is hypotonic because it's less concentrated. But for salt solution inside this living cell is hypertonic. So the movement of material from a region of lower concentration to a higher concentration is what we call plasmolysis. The cell therefore what? Shrink, because there has been a movement of material from a region. The cell has moved from the material in the cell. Take for instance, we have a cell in this, and then the water. This is the concentration here is hypertonic. Hyper, that is outside the cell, is stronger than this is hypo. The material here, therefore, there will be a movement of water from the cell outside the wall. So making the material, at the end of the day, you discover that the shell becomes smaller, as a result of movement of water. So it becomes shrinky. So when it shrinks, the cell is said to be plasmolyzed, meaning it has lost water into the environment. But the reverse is the case when we come to hemolysis. Hemolysis simply means when a situation where enough water enters the cell, and it gets to a point where the cell becomes turgid. You must have taken in enough of water, the cell becomes so turgid, and at some point it can burst. When the cell now bursts, we call it hemolysis. Especially we observe in red blood cells where cell takes in enough fluid until a stage where they now decide to begin to break. So we have a number of movements and the terms that describe this movement, such as osmosis, diffusion, hemolysis, and plasmolysis. Now, we have endocytosis and exocytosis. Endocytosis simply means a movement of water or fluid into the cell. Endo meaning liquid or material move into the cell, while exocytosis simply means the movement of material outside the cell. So these are the differences between exocytosis and exocytosis. The movement of material into the cell, while the movement of material outside the cell is exocytosis. Now, protein synthesis. This is how protein is manufactured in the living organism. Protein is a complex structure of amino acid. Protein is made up of complex, that is combination of several amino acids, and it is made up in the organelles known as ribosome. The ribosomal cells are responsible for condensing this amino acid to a giant molecule called amino acid. That is why when they are being broken down, they are broken down into the simplest form, which is amino acid, which the body can absorb. Which the body can absorb. Sorry. All right. Cell cycle. Cell originates from living organism. And then we say the basic unit of life is the cell. Then when we have accumulated cell, two or more cells performing the same function, it gives rise to what's called tissue. Tissue comes together to perform the same function. They say two or more tissue come together. Example is amoeba. Amoeba is a cell. Then we have combination of this. We have organ. Then organ combines together with the same function to form what we call system. A system. Now we have the blood tissue. Blood is an example. Then the organ, you can hear the ear or eye. Then in the system, human system, we can have what we call the skeletal system. So let's take some few questions on this. What process does a cell use to take in large substances? That is when you are taking in. A, exocytosis. Exo means out. You are taking out material, so it's not correct. B, endocytosis. Endo means you are taking in. Mitosis, this is cell division. Then photosynthesis, this is the manufacture of complex material through or inorganic combination of water, carbon dioxide in presence of sunlight, and chlorophyll. So the correct answer is B, taking in substances, endocytosis. Number 2, which process involves releasing substances from a cell? That is the ability of you releasing substance from the cell. A, endocytosis. B, exocytosis. C, protein synthesis. C, cell division. Which of the processes involve releasing substances, that is from the cell? You are taking out substance from it is exo, because it's going out. The correct answer is B, exocytosis. Number 3. What is the main outcome of protein synthesis? That is, when you break down protein, what will be the final product? A. DNA replication, cell division, production of protein, breaking of cell. What is the main outcome of protein synthesis? DNA replication, cell division, protein, production of protein. You are breaking down protein, so you are not making it. Breaking down of cell. Correct answer is protein DNA replication. You are replicating in A. What is the cell cycle primarily involved in? A. Protein synthesis, cell growth and division, DNA breakdown, waste removal. The correct answer is cell growth and division. Cell growth and division. Number 5. In which process do cells engulf substances to bring them inside? As in the case of white blood cells will engulf some foreign material. What is the process called? Exocytosis. B. Endocytosis. C. Phagocytosis. That is specific type of phagocytosis. Both B and C. The correct answer is D. Phagocytosis and endocytosis. Correct answer D. Next, life processes in living organisms. That is, what are the characteristic functions of cell in a living organism? What are the properties and the function of cell in their formation cell? We have amoeba, paramecium, and euglena. How does the life process, affect this organism? Number 1, amoeba is a single-celled organism, and it is heterotrophic in nature, meaning it can feed on plants and animals. Paramecium at the same time is a unicellular organism too, but has the characteristics of moving through what you call the cilia. Cilia is a structure that enables this organism to move about in their aquatic condition. Why amoeba move through what we call pseudopodia? Amoeba. Pseudopodia, which is a structure for the movement. Paramecium moves. Paramecium, called cilia. Then euglena. Now, before we move into the euglena, amoeba is able to reproduce asexually. That is, it can, give rise to a younger one through what we call cell division. This is cell division, meaning it can divide the cell into 2 equal halves. Same time, we have paramecium. Paramecium too can reproduce through what we call asexual reproduction, and as well as conjugation, meaning it can mix both opposite cells where they exchange their material and their oral growth, where they exchange some genetic material before each separates to deliver on their offspring. Now we have euglena. Euglena is a characteristic of cell that share both plant and animal characteristics. It's a type of cell that shows that this organism can behave as animal at the same time as plant. They are able to reproduce they are able to move in the environment through the flagella. They have a number of whip-like structures that enable them to move in their environment. So for euglena, we have flagellum. Flagellum. Plural flagella. Then we have another organism too called spirogyra. These are algae material, they are made up of algae, which reproduce through what we call spore formation. They can reproduce asexually at the same time sexually. Asexual in the sense that Spirogyra can split into half, to give rise to 2 young Spirogyra. Then at the same time, they can conjugate by meeting a male and a female parent, where they exchange their genetic material. Now we have another one called rhizopods. Rhizopods, can reproduce. They are all aquatic organisms. They can reproduce through what we call spore formation. They live in a very wet environment. That's where they survive. Through spore formation. They form what we call sporangial form when it comes to replication and reproduction. Then we have Moses and fan. Moses to reproduce through spore formation. The fan is an organism that can reproduce both sexually and asexually, because they are vascular plants. They have their vascular system. Now let's take some few questions on these topics. Which organism moves using pseudopodia? Like we said, we have amoeba, paramecium, euglena, spirogyra. The correct answer is amoeba. Amoeba has a structure that enables them to glide in the environment. So spirogyra is not the option, euglena is not, paramecium is not. Paramecium moves through cilia, as we have seen above, euglena through flagella, and spirogyra does not require all this. So the correct answer is A. Number 2. Which of the following is a characteristic of euglena? Euglena has a specific characteristic that differentiates it from all other organisms. A. It has cilia for movement. No. It is prokaryotic. It has chlorophyll for photosynthesis. D. It reproduces by spore. The correct answer is C. But euglena has a basic characteristic of presence of chlorophyll, which enable them to manufacture their food. Number 3. How does rhizopods typically reproduce? Rhizopods, how do they reproduce? A. By binary fusion, that is, they split into 2 equal halves. Spore formation, that is through spore. Seed, then body. The correct answer is B. Rhizopods reproduce through spore formation. Number 4. Which group of plants produces via spore and has vascular tissue? A plant that can produce through spore formation at the same time vascular tissue. A. Moses. B. Fan. C. Algae. D. Fungi. The correct answer that has these 2 characteristics is B. The fan. The fan can produce through spore formation at the same time possession of vascular system. The last question on this topic is, what is the mode of nutrition of amoeba? How does amoeba feed? What kind of feeding mechanism is carried out by amoeba? A. Autotrophic. Autotrophic means amoeba should be able to manufacture their own food. B. Heterotropism, meaning they can eat anything, both plant and animal. Saprophytism, so meaning they are saprophytic in the sense that they can feed on decayed organic material. Then parasitism, they depend on other animals at the same time causing danger to this animal. They cause harm or danger to this animal. So the correct answer is B. amoeba is heterotrophic in nature. So let's take the next topic, which says plant structure and physiology. That is, how does plants look like? What is their composition? How do they look like? Both morphology. Morphology means their sizes, their shape, and their structures. How do they look like? Morphology of monocot plants. When we say monocot plants are one seed leaf. They are plants that has just one seed leaf. The example that we can relate to is maize. When you have a maize has just one seed leaf, one cotyledon. When we compare to dicot has two cotyledons. For instance, we have beans. Beans can split into two halves. The seed leaf can be split into both. Maize is just a single cotyledon, just one. So that is how we can differentiate. And then monocot plants are usually cereal. They are cereal crop. While dicot plants are leguminous or proteinous in nature. They are leguminous plants. We have other characteristics that differentiates. Talking about their venation. For monocot plant, we have parallel venation. For this, we have parallel venation. Venation, that is the arrangement of their leaves. Venation. You see, for maize, we have some parallel structure on their leaves like this. But for dicot plant, they have a network of venation. Network of venation. Their leaves can have like a net, kind of. Their veins are not arranged in parallel form, but they form a network of venation. Then let's talk about their root system. Why monocot plants are fibrous in nature? They have fibrous roots. Dicot plants have what we call taproot. They have taproot, meaning they have their food down into the soil. While monocot plants have shallow roots called fibrous. So we have a lot of differences between plants known as monocot and fibrous. Then let's talk about their germination. Why monocot plant is hypogea in nature. That is, their seed leaf, when you plant them, their seed leaves are buried below the soil. Dicot plants are called epigea. Epigea germination, meaning their seed leaf opens above, they are thrown open above the soil surface, and they are usually split into two equal halves. Example is the beans, mango, and so on and so forth. Now, transport system in plants. That is the movement of molecule from plant. We have three types of movements of material. We can have what we call xylem. Xylem tissue. We have the phloem tissue. Xylem is different from phloem. They are vascular system that enables water to move from the soil through the root system onto the body, to the leaf. That is the ability of water to rise through the root system to the leaf surface. So it is conducted by what a tissue called xylem tissue. But at the same time, we have the phloem. Phloem is the opposite movement of material that is manufactured food from the leaf. Leaves manufacture photosynthesis, And this material, the end product of photosynthesis is starch, or which are complex organic material, and they are stored on the body of the stem of the plant. So this movement of material from the leaf down the stem is what is conducted by what called the phloem tissue. The phloem tissue. Then we have other movement too called guttation. Guttation simply means the movement of water bodies or water droplets on the leaves, usually in the ninth hour. You know, in the ninth hour, you see the leaves are covered with water bodies or water drop molecules on the surface as a result of high pressure on the root system, conducting water from the plants into the body of the plant, and you can see them dropping through the leaves. So this is described as guttation. Guttation. Now, let's quickly address reproduction in plants. The production, especially we are going to limit ourselves to flowering plants. Flowering plants, you know, the flower is a structure or the organ in plant that enables reproduction to take place. That is, we have the reproductive structure. The basic reproductive structure in the floral part are calyx, the floral part calyx, petal, androecium, gynocium. These are the four floral parts, that is the hull, we call them hull, floral hull. That is the arrangement of the reproductive parts of the flower in their ring form. So the first one is the calyx. The calyx is otherwise known as sepal. Sepal is made up of photosynthetic material. They are colored green, meaning they enable the plant to carry out photosynthesis. Now, the petal is otherwise known as corolla. Another name for petal is the corolla. These are the brightly structured material or hull that attracts insects. You know, when it comes to insect pollinated plants, they attack insects because of their beauty. You know, when this insect peck on this thing, they try to go directly to the stigma where we have some nectar, sugary material which the insect feed upon. In the course of feeding upon the nectar, they decide to rub their bodies on the stamen, you know, which contain the pollen grains. So the pollen grain mixes with the stamen, with the pollen grains contain inside the stamen pollen grain. You know, the pollen grain contains the male sex cell, which therefore fall as a result of the action of this organism, that is bee, rubbing on the gymnasium, therefore touching the stigma. So when the pollen grain touches the stigma, fertilization therefore takes place, and then we call it pollination, which can be done by insect. The example of insect pollination is bee. You know. So we said pollination is the transfer of pollen grain from the male to the
Run quick tests and analysis. Visit analysis.africa.
stigma. You know, transfer of pollen grain from the anther in the stamen to the stigma. So reproduction is carried out by the flower. You know, that is where the reproduction actually takes place. The difference between the male structure, the male is called the male cell is called pollen grain, while the female, this is male, the female is called the ovule. Ovule is the sex cell in a flower, while the pollen grain is the male sex cell in the flower. Let's take some few questions before we move on. What is the function of the cortical in plant's leaf? A, to absorb water. B, to release oxygen. C, to prevent water loss. D, to produce chlorophyll. The correct answer is the cortical prevents water loss. It reduces the rate of evaporation in plant. So the correct answer is C. Which part of a flower produces pollen grain? Like we said, the pollen grain is the male sex cell in plant. A, stigma. Stigma is the female. Style, anther, and ovary. The correct answer is anther, because anther is contained in the stigma and is contained in the stamen, which houses the pollen grain. So the correct answer is C. What type of venation, that is the arrangement on the leaves, the pattern of the leaf, is typically found in dicot plants? For dicot plants, A, parallel venation, B, reticulate venation, C, fibrous, D, adventitious. These two are root system. So why these two? Parallel venation is synonymous to monocot plant. The correct answer is reticulate or net structure in leaf venation. Correct answer is B, network of venation. 4. In a floral formula, what does A infinity represent? A infinity. A simply means androecium. Why this is infinity? Meaning A, absence of stamen. Many stamen. Stamen is otherwise known as androecium. Stamen. Many stamen. Few stamen. No stamen. Infinity means unlimited, so meaning many stamen. The correct answer is B. Number 5. Which of the following is an example of a monocot plant? That is a monocotyledonous plant. A, mango trees. The mango tree can split into two halves, so it's not a monocot plant. Maize plant, beans plant, sunflower. The correct answer is B, maize plant. Maize plant is an example of monocotyledonous plant. Let's take the next topic for today. It says human and their environment. That is, how does human being relate to the environment? How does the environment constitute, danger or help, or in terms of how does the environment influence human, and how does human influence the environment? Now, let's talk about water bodies. Human beings actually are surrounded with water bodies, and this water body constitutes a number of help to man in terms of production of agriculture. Through water bodies, man can fish, can carry out some activities such as fishing. They can carry out activities such as agricultural material that can help out in irrigation. They can drink water, suitable condition for organisms to live. is the presence of water. No organism would thrive without the presence of water. So water body or management of water helps man to survive and to live in the environment. At the same time, man also affects water bodies by their activities on this water body. Activities such as mechanization, fertilization. In fact, a number of industrial activities hamper the water bodies. Take for instance, when human activities such as fertilization of crop, endangers the water body, such as fish in the pond, because some of these chemicals that are contained in this fertilizer can kill a number of organisms, thereby affecting the economy of man in that environment. Now let's look at the health and hygiene. How does our environment constitute problem to us in terms of balancing the hygiene or the danger that this environment constitutes? Number one, we can live healthily in our environment by taking care of our body. We do a number of washing. We can wash our body by bathing, by washing our hands, so as to reduce the incidences of germ coming into the body. And our environment can be cleaned through what we call proper sanitation. We can decide to cut down on the grasses in our environment, thereby reducing the influx of pathogen, bacteria that can constitute danger to the life of human beings. When you reduce this pathogen, you have a very holistic environment where man can live without being affected by diseases or epidemics. Now, drug abuse. Drug abuse simply
Get the cheapest science materials from AllSchoolLabs.com.
means the unlawful use or the abuse of drug. Man is surrounded by nature, and nature has a number of opportunities that can help man to live successfully. But when these materials are not properly utilized or they are wrongly used, they constitute danger to human life. So drugs such as cannabis, it's very important in medicine. It's very important in some of these manufacturing industry. But when you use them in an appropriate manner, they constitute danger into the health of man. Now, community health. How does the community, the entire community, how do we guarantee safety in terms of human life? Proper sanitation is key. Our environment has to be pure of pathogen. Reduce vectors such as housefly and mosquito, tsetse fly. These are disease-carrying organisms. That can affect human life. So when these are reduced, noise pollution is another community health that constitute health hazard to man. So all these are dangerous to human life. Now, first aid. First aid is the first-hand treatment you give to a patient that is undergoing a particular health challenge. First aid are the first-hand procedure you administer to a patient that is not really, enjoying a good health. Some of these things can come in a box called the first aid box. In the first aid box, we have plaster, we have iodine, we have bandage in case of snake bite or whatever, that you can first of all give to to a patient before you involve the services of a professional, health officer such as nurses or doctor. In times of seizure or in times of heart attack, you can recommend a procedure where you can take the patient by undergoing what we call CPR. CPR is a stage where you are trying to resuscitate a patient that is lacking oxygen because it's finding it difficult to breathe properly, by helping the lung, the cardiovascular system, to work properly by infusing in that patient enough air that can cause the heart to begin to return back to its normal state. Let's take some few questions on this topic. What is the main goal of integrated water resources management? Why do we have to manage our water system? What is the main objective? Increase water pollution. To increase water pollution is not a goal. Promote water wastage. That's it, we want to encourage wastage of water. Ensure sustainable water use. That we should ensure that we use water properly. Reduces water accesses. The correct answer is C. To ensure we have a sustainable water use. Use water properly. Number 2. Which practice is crucial for preventing waterborne disease? That is, disease that is caused as a result of water bodies. What procedure, what practice can we ensure that will reduce the danger of posed by water bodies? A. Proper waste disposal. If we dispose our waste properly, it will reduce the incidence of waterborne disease. Using untreated water. Reducing hand washing. Open defecation. You see, the last 3 proper waste disposal, using untreated water, reducing hand washing. You can't reduce your hand washing, but rather you improve on your hand washing. Open defecation. Don't defecate here openly. This can be washed down by the river and then end up in your body. So the correct answer is proper waste disposal. We need to dispose our waste properly. When they are properly, disposed, there is no way they can get in contact with the water bodies, that cause them to enter into man again, causing us some diseases. Number 3. What is a common effect of drug abuse? That is, when you use drug, when you abuse drug, when you use them unlawfully, unguided, what will be the effect? A. Improve health. Unlawful use of drug does not improve health. Increase productivity. Addiction. Better social relationship. The negative effect is addiction. You become addicted. You can't do without it. It becomes part of your life. You can't survive without drug. That's the negative implication. So the answer is addiction. Number 4. Which is an example of community health initiative? How does the community encourage living properly? Individual counseling. That is when you meet one-on-one and then counsel people on how to dispose your material, how to maintain your environment to ensure your health. Mass vaccination campaign. That is, do a thorough vaccination where you introduce vaccine to the entire community so as to fight against imminent diseases. Private healthcare services. Personal fitness program. Which of these is an example of health initiative in health Example of community health initiative: individual counseling, mass vaccination campaign, private health care services. Personal, the correct answer is mass vaccination campaign. When there is an impending danger, you make it public, telling everyone about the need. Look at the case of COVID-19. The entire community, there has been this campaign for people to go and undergo what we call vaccination, so as to mitigate against the danger posed by this virus. The last question for today, it says, what is the first step in treating a severe bleeding wound? When you have a case of blood running out of the vessels of a human being, what is the step you can take when you have a cut on your body? The first step to take is A, apply pressure, clean the wound, and apply antibiotics on to elevate the injured area. The correct answer is apply pressure. That's when you have a cut on your body, what will be the first thing to do? Try to apply pressure on that surface so as to prevent much blood from flowing out. So the correct answer is A. So with this, we have come to the end of today's class.
Hi, I'm sure you enjoyed the video you just watched. To see more content as that, prepare you for your upcoming exam, make sure to smash the subscribe button and turn on notification. Also, remember that you can use the comment section to send us your questions or your inquiries, and we are happy to take them. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.